Morena koutou, Matua Michael here. You might be noticing that I'm wearing a red poppy today, and the reason I'm wearing that red poppy is because tomorrow is the 25th of April. It is Anzac Day, a place for us to remember all those people who served our country in the past wars, especially the one in Gallipoli. And as I was thinking about that, I remembered that I had a story up in my bookcase that I'd like to read to you. So here we go. This is the story. It's called A Present from the Past. So let's get started. It was Christmas Eve. Emily was thinking about a beautiful Christmas tree that she had just finished decorating at home. How she wished she was there. Instead, Emily and her family and her parents were standing in the airport terminal, waiting for someone they'd never met before. Emily's father was holding up a sign on which he'd written, Aunt Mary. Her mother was looking at a grey-haired lady being wheeled through the arrivals gate. "Do you think that's her?" she whispered. All Emily knew was that Aunt Mary was her father's aunt. She had emailed from England and asked if she could come and visit. "I've got something special that belonged to my mother," she'd written, "and I'd like to pass it on to your family." Emily and her parents had no idea what it was, or why Aunt Mary wanted them to have it. Suddenly, someone cried, "Here I am!" And Aunt Mary was standing right beside them. Her skin was a bit wrinkled, but she had curly red hair and wore jeans and a purple jacket and lots of sparkly jewellery. Although she'd been travelling for more than a day and a night, she didn't seem tired. There was a lot of excited chatter as Emily's father drove them home. The adults were talking about people and places that Emily had never heard of before. She felt confused, although she did know that her grandfather had been born in England. "My dad came out here as a young man," her father explained. "Yes, and we lost touch with him many years ago," Aunt Mary said. "I didn't even know he'd died. But thanks to the internet, I managed to track down your family. I have no children of my own, so you're my next of kin." That night, after Emily went to bed, her parents and Aunt Mary talked for hours, catching up on years of family news. And the picture's beautiful. Next morning, when it was time to open up the Christmas presents, Aunt Mary gave Emily a small oblong parcel. On it was written, "Best wishes from Princess Mary." Emily was puzzled. Was her aunt a princess? Her heart beat with excitement as she untied the organza ribbon and tried to imagine what treasure the parcel might contain. As she opened the wrapping paper, Emily tried hard to hide her disappointment. Inside was a small brass box with a lid so damaged it was hard to open. When she finally managed to lift the lid, Emily found it held nothing but a scrap of paper. "It's a family heirloom, so I wanted to give it to you personally," Aunt Mary said. Emily didn't know what to say. Surely this battered old box wasn't the something special Aunt Mary had travelled all the way over the other side of the world to deliver. But it was. "I know it seems a bit of a strange gift," Aunt Mary told Emily, "and I intended to give it to your father, but last night your parents said they wanted you to have it. When I tell you the story behind it, I hope you'll understand." Wonder what the story is. My mother was one of the first British nurses in World War I, she said. In 1914, at Christmas, she was serving in France. As a trained nurse, she worked mainly in a field hospital. Sometimes, however, when she was supposed to be off duty, she helped the volunteer nurses who were based closer to the battlefield. The soldiers fought in terrible conditions, and caring for the injured was dangerous work. It's a bit like caring for the people at the moment is dangerous work. Aunt Mary smiled at Emily. I can see you're wondering what being a nurse has to do with the small box, aren't you? Well, Princess Mary, who was the only daughter of the King and Queen of England at the time, decided that she wanted to give a special present to all the Allied troops serving overseas, every sailor afloat and every soldier on the front. It was the way she put it. They were a long way from their homes and families. Some had even come from Australia and New Zealand. The princess, who was 17 years old, thought a personal present at Christmas might help cheer them up. Not a man must be forgotten, the princess insisted, and the list grew to include women serving as nurses. This must be the Princess Mary. At first, Princess Mary was determined to pay for the gift boxes herself, but the cost was too great. She wrote a letter asking for help, which was published in the newspapers all over the country. People were eager to contribute. With Christmas only a short time away, the young princess and her supporters managed to raise enough money for thousands of these boxes to be made. Aunt Mary pointed to the embossed pattern on the box Emily was holding. What can you see on the lid? She asked. Apart from the damage, that is. I'll tell you about that later. Well, there's writing around the edge with a girl's face in the middle, Emily said. Is that the princess? Indeed it is, Aunt Mary replied. She thought an image of her father, the king, should be on the lid, but her parents insisted that her face should be shown. As well as other small gifts, most of the boxes included tobacco or cigarettes, as many men smoked in those days. However, some contained sweets or a packet of chocolate, and nurses were given one of those. My mother kept the box in her pocket and allowed herself one piece of chocolate a day to make it last. I remember her saying that it was the best chocolate she'd ever tasted. There's the box. But one day, while my mother was tending a wounded soldier, she was struck by an enemy bullet. It could have killed her, but fortunately the bullet hit the box. That hole in the lid shows how miraculously this box saved her life. That's a big word, isn't it? Miraculously. After the war, she married the handsome young soldier she'd been helping that day. He became my father, your great-grandfather. When I was born, my parents named me after the princess. I like happy endings, Emily said, as she carefully unfolded the yellow piece of paper from inside the box. It was a message of good wishes from the Princess Mary and friends at home. Aunt Mary's eyes twinkled as she added, But that's not quite the end of it, my dear. Just recently, when I read more about the princess, I noticed something that gives her an extra link with Australia and New Zealand. What's that? Emily asked. Well, I'll give you a clue. Princess Mary's birthday happened to be in April. Emily's eyes widened. Not the 25th. Yes, the date that's become your Anzac Day. That's what finally made me decide to travel to the other side of the world to meet your family and give you this present for Christmas. As Emily gently closed the lid, the old brass box seemed to have grown warm in her hands. Thank you for the special present, Emily said, giving her aunt a hug. Now I understand. Well, it is important to remember the past. But let's enjoy ourselves today, Aunt Mary chuckled. There's another gift for you under the tree. When Emily opened the fancy wrapping, she discovered a sparkly tiara, perfect for a princess. Wasn't that a lovely story? All about memories from the past and how a special box became a really, really important family heirloom. Do you have any family heirlooms at home? Have you got something special that's from the past? Maybe you could tell me about it. Enjoy your Anzac Day and remember those soldiers and those nurses who really did good for our country. Ka kite, everyone.